is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the set of Football Night in America. Devin McCourty, Jason Garrett, Matthew Berry, Steve Kornacki still to come. I'm Mike Florio. Let's talk Week 15, and let's start with the game of the afternoon. Rematch of a couple of Super Bowls, big game, close contest until they started actually playing. The Bills, unbelievable what the Bills have done and how different the Cowboys are. Coaches, you've been saying all year, you get them away from home, it's a different team.
Yeah, I mean, it blew our mind today. Like, we kind of figured that this Dallas team wouldn't play exactly the same as they've been playing at home, but not to this degree. Not that Buffalo would just come out and steamroll this team. And to me, it was evident that Buffalo dominated on both sides. I know James Cook took all of the headlines of the way they played. Josh Allen said, I just showed up for the group project and got an A. But I thought this Buffalo defense, I thought they've struggled a little bit with all of the injuries. It's kind of been up and down. I thought they came out, and the thing that I took away was the disguise. There was one time in the red zone, Dak Prescott ran a stretch play right into the blitz and safety. Taylor Rapp comes down. Like, when they're able to mix those things in, disguise their defense, make it harder on the quarterback, that's when they're at their best. And if they can continue that play on defense, this is going to be a scary team going into playoffs.
Yeah, I was shocked. 7 days ago, the Cowboys just blew the Philadelphia Eagles out of the stadium, right? One of the best teams in the league. And they've been so dominant, but you said it, at home, they're a different team than they are on the road. And, Buffalo's had their backs against the wall here for the last few weeks, and maybe they found their formula. We've been talking about taking the burden off the quarterback all year long. They rushed for 266 against a really good Cowboy defense, right? And they slowed down arguably the best offense in football. They had under 200 yards of offense. And I do think it's about physicality. I do think they won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And then if you're Buffalo, you say, we did all that, and Josh didn't really have to do anything. Now you have all this, you have all this ammo left as you go forward. You think about when you need a guy like Josh Allen and you're doing these other things, they're going to be a hard team to beat.
They're definitely going to be a hard team to beat. Listen, they've been desperate for a while. They know their season's on the line. They're still not in the playoff picture. They're still in the hunt, if you will, but they were at home and desperate. And you mentioned the running, right? So getting James Cook unlocked. It's his fifth straight game with over 100 yards from scrimmage. That's been the biggest change going from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady calling the plays, is the involvement of James Cook in all facets. We saw him really involved not only running the ball, but obviously in the passing attack as well. We've said for years, the Bills need to find a way to win games without Josh Allen putting on his Superman cape and just leading them to victory. And this was the perfect example of it. Because he, as he admitted, he's like, I showed up for the group project. I got an A. I don't really feel like I did anything. It was James Cook, and then you mentioned, Devin, the defense. Just to give you some stats on exactly what you're talking about. Cowboys, prior to that final drive, where it was like the backups were in, they had only 8 first downs the entire game. They punted 5 times. For the first 57 minutes of this game, the Cowboys had 3 points. The Cowboys, Dak Prescott came into this game as a legitimate MVP candidate. Yes. And he goes in a game in which the Cowboys they had an opportunity to take first place in the NFC in this game. And Dak Prescott, goes 21 to 34 for 134 yards and an interception. They were dominant, and the Bills defense was banged up coming into this. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to take any credit away from Buffalo because they played so well in all facets of the game. But if I'm a Dallas fan, if I'm the Dallas coaches, I'm just like, these are the kind of games Super Bowl teams don't get blown out like this on the road in December, right? Yeah. This is not what happens.
The Buffalo Bills had an incident a couple of weeks ago that I think has gone a long way to just organically galvanize them. The reporting from Tyler Dunn of GoLongTD.com, 20,000 words, that really hit Coach Sean McDermott hard. And I feel like that team has responded by rallying around him, coming together, winning a couple of big games, beat the Chiefs in Kansas City, now this big win over the Cowboys, and they've got the real momentum with just a few games left, and they're one of the best teams right now in the NFL. And for the Cowboys, I'm going to flip it around. Coach, do we have any reason to think that if the Cowboys go to San Francisco in the postseason, anything different than what we see happen today is going to happen then?
Well, it goes back to that home and away thing. They just haven't played nearly as well away from their own building, and it becomes a challenge for them. You know, I know a lot of those guys in that locker room. There's a lot of character in that locker room. The quarterback, he's a special leader. So don't count them out right now just because of this game. They're going to respond the right way. They're going to write 3 more stories as the season ends. The Cowboys are going to do it, and everybody else is too. So I wouldn't be surprised if they regroup and rally the right way. It's a tough task going to San Francisco, first and foremost, because San Francisco is so good. Yeah. They're a really good football team, and Dallas not as good on the road. But that's for a month from now. You know, this team just needs to get back playing the way they played here for the last month and a half, and I think they're capable of doing that.
And one thing I'll add, 2018 season, we go to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Prior to that, the New England Patriots hadn't won a road playoff game since 2004. That's all we heard leading into the game. And we went and won in Kansas. Many, though. Yeah, but the ones we did, we lost. Yeah. And it was like, well, they're not at home. They have no road to the Super Bowl. So I agree with Jason on that. We got to wait and see with this Cowboys team.
Well, and we're going to get an opportunity. They're at Miami next week. And then the week after that, they're home to Detroit. So, and then they finish with Washington, whatever. That's a W. But
show some love to your team.
Come on now.
Stop it. Come on, my team's terrible. My team is terrible. But it's fine. It's fine. But ultimately, Miami and Detroit are both really good teams, and those are going to be real tests. And so, again, the narrative about can they win on the road, can they win big games, that's an important game for the Dolphins, obviously, as well. So if they go to Miami and beat the Dolphins, then sure, I think a lot of this talk subsides. But until we see the Cowboys come up in a big way on the road, that narrative's just going to be there.
We'll next see the Bills in an exclusive Peacock-only game on Saturday night at the LA Chargers. Steve Kornacki, tell us what today's win did to improve the Bills' playoff chances.
Yeah, here's a couple ways of looking at it. First, this is a line graph courtesy of our friends from DraftKings, just looking week by week through the year at the odds of the Bills making the playoffs. Of course, it was almost a given at the start of the year they'd be in the playoffs, but they hit the skids, and here it is, the low point just a couple weeks ago. Remember that heartbreaker they suffered in Philadelphia? They were a long shot just to make the playoffs, but then the upset win at Arrowhead, they stomped the Cowboys, as you're talking about, and all of a sudden, take a look here. The Bills are actually better than an even money chance to make the playoffs. But why stop at just making the playoffs? What about the Bills winning the AFC East maybe? Take a look at this. They're 2 games behind the Dolphins. There's 3 games left. You say, how could that happen? But the answer is the schedules here. The Bills have, look at this, they get the Chargers, you were talking about this, they get the Patriots, they get 2 teams very beatable, to put it mildly. Meanwhile, the Dolphins the next 2 weeks, this is the toughest schedule in the league the next 2 weeks. The Cowboys, no matter what they look like today, and then at the Ravens. So for the Bills, if the Bills go 2-0 in these games, and the Dolphins just lose one of these next 2, look what happens in Week 18. Bills at Dolphins. If the Bills win that game, they have the head-to-head. They'd sweep it with Miami. That would give them the tiebreaker. That would give them the division. That would give them a home game.
Great stuff, Steve. We'll be back to you in a second. Now, the Houston Texans went to play the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans kind of rubbed it in a little bit, dressing as the Houston Oilers. Texans didn't have C.J. Stroud. He was out with a concussion. They skipped over Davis Mills and went to Case Keenum. And it wasn't pretty, and it took a while to work. But overtime, the Texans steal that win, and they stay, Coach, in the playoff picture.
Yeah, the Texans are one of the best stories for me in the league this year. We've been talking about C.J. Stroud, their rookie quarterback, how well he's played. Now you take him out of the equation, and you say, okay, Case, give it a shot here. And you said it was not good early, but he showed his poise. He showed his veteran leadership towards the end of the ball game, and he made the critical plays when they needed to. The other part of this thing is Houston's defense has been fantastic. They completely shut down Derrick Henry. I think he had 14 yards rushing. Hopkins wasn't a factor in the game at all. So they took away the 2 best playmakers that the Titans had, and then Case Keenum and that offense made the plays when they needed to at the end of the game and in overtime.
I agree. What's special about this Houston team is it's a young team, first-year head coach. Nick Casero's building the team, making moves, drafting guys. But last week, they go to New York, they play the Jets, and they lay an egg. Zach Wilson, 300 yards passing. It's like, what happened to this Houston team? How are they going to respond? They showed you how they're going to respond. This defense fought all game. They battled. They knew offensively they're going to have to put some things together. And they did it. And then they said, you know what? We're going to play our best ball down the stretch. I thought Devin Singletary was big today. You lose C.J. Stroud. You could just hand the ball off to him. I mean, had a chance to end the game, a holding call, but him showing up and doing that for this team today, I think took a lot of pressure off Case Keenum and helped him get the win.
In a game that featured Derrick Henry, Devin Singletary gets 30 touches, 170 yards from scrimmage. To your point, Devin, did you know that coming into this game, Derrick Henry had 5 straight 100-yard games against the Texans, a couple of which had been over 200 yards. Derrick Henry just tortures the Oilers, and the Texans, and they're in the Oilers uniforms, right? I mean, think about Houston. They come into Tennessee, they're wearing the Oilers throwbacks. Vrabel's got the Bum Phillips, love you blue hat, everything like that. No one's counting them out because no Nico Collins, no Dank Dell, no C.J. Stroud. You guys don't have a chance. And they come out, and to your point, Derrick Henry just 20 touches for 10 yards, and DeAndre Hopkins 2 for 21. They shut down their 2 big stars, as you say there. I thought this was a gutty win. And just to bring it back, I like to talk betting a little bit. This is just a dumb rule I have in betting. This is a dumb rule I have in betting. But I gave this out on the show earlier this week. Whenever a team with a winning, I'm a big believer in the Bill Parcells. Your record is, you are what your record is, right? And anytime a team with a winning record is getting points from a team with a losing record, no matter what it looks like, you just take it. Houston was getting 3.5. You know what? I'm taking that. I don't care. Even though Tennessee's got a losing record, Texans have a winning record, and they continue that. This is a gutty win by the Texans.
Easy money schemes from Berry. There we go.
And by the way,
it's a nice nugget.
Right, I'm just telling you, DeMeco Ryans is legit in the Coach of the Year candidacy. He's got to be. Yeah. He's got to be
absolutely
in that conversation.
Absolutely. And you know those college traditions, like when the teams play every year, they've got the little brown jug and the axe, and what they should do whenever the Texans and the Titans play, whoever wins that game should have the rights to the Oilers uniform until the next time they play.
Like
That's what they should do. And you mentioned Ryans. He's a Coach of the Year candidate. Shane Steichen of the Colts. I mean, we talk about MVP. Coach of the Year is wide open. And another Coach of the Year candidate won it a few years ago. Kevin Stefanski, the Cleveland Browns. Yep. Today, they were down.
That is true.
They're down, Matthew, by 10. Yeah. They come back. They get the win. They hold off the Hail Mary, and the Browns guaranteed their second losing record since the 80s. Second winning record. Slight difference. Second winning record in years. And they look like a team that if they get to the playoffs, they can maybe make some noise.
Yeah, and it was a big win today, but it also, the question marks, I think, for the last 2 games, Joe Flacco's thrown the ball over 40 times. I don't know if Cleveland wants to live in that. Deshaun Watson was their starting quarterback, and they wasn't doing that with him. They wasn't coming out and just throwing the ball. So I do think if they want to have success, if they want to make a run in the playoffs, even if they want to make the playoffs down the stretch of this season, they need to get the running game going. They need to be able to not put everything on Joe Flacco. Yes, he's a veteran, but there were some moments today where he looked a little rusty. He looked a little bit of his age. And the thing about experience and quarterbacks older, he came in clutch down the stretch. But I think for this team, they need to make sure that they rely on the run game a little bit more.
Yeah, and no doubt. And they deserve a ton of credit, too. When you lose your starting quarterback, you have a guy who's on a couch 3 weeks ago, and now he's playing he's 38 years old. I mean, all that to be in this position, really impressive. It's about their defense, first and foremost. It's a dominant defense, one of the best in the league. And to me, to your point, it fits for them to get that running game going again. They've been one of the best rushing teams in the NFL over the last few years. Get that going again a little bit more. Maybe that eliminates some of the mistakes that Joe made in the game. But to have that guy who's been in so many big games throughout his career, he showed up big at crunch time in this game. They pressured him on 3rd down. He finds Njoku. He finds Amari Cooper on the deep over route for the touchdown. In the big moments, he came through for him. Hats off to those guys.
I'm glad you mentioned David Njoku because 10 receptions for 104 yards is a career high. He was so clutch, especially down the stretch. 2 big catches in that final drive as well. And so for me, Joe Flacco started slow, to your point, right? But in the 4th quarter, 11 of 13, 212 yards, in the fourth. I mean, they were down. And I want to say, give the Chicago Bears credit. Yeah. Defensively, since they got Montez Sweat, that has been one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they're really good against the run. They're one of the elite run defenses in the NFL, and so the Browns couldn't get anything going, and Joe Flacco was under pressure all the time. He got sacked a number of times. He threw the pick 6, But again, to your point about veteran leadership, he didn't panic. He's like, well, let's just keep going. He found Amari Cooper for a big play later. He kept going, obviously, in Njoku. He found something with him, and so I don't know. if Flacco plays as well as he's playing, even with all the flaws, I get it. I mean, he made some mistakes. He's not super mobile, but that's an impressive win because I think people don't realize how good the Bears have played recently. That's a hell of a win by that entire Browns organization.
I think one of the plays that will get lost in what was a crazy game that culminated in the Hail Mary, the David Njoku touchdown catch, where he does the heel-toe thing, and we all know that if the toe lands and the rest of the foot comes down, it's got to be in bounds. He somehow twisted his foot on the way down and kept the heel from hitting the white stripe. And at first it looked like there's no way he pulled it off. He pulled it off. He had a hell of a day, and he is Joe Flacco's favorite target in that offense. So watch the Browns moving forward. For more on today's big winners as it relates to the playoff chase, here's Steve Kornacki.
Yeah, I think the two biggest winners in terms of the playoff chase, the teams you're just talking about right now, the Texans and the Browns, and both of them, as you're saying, were not looking like winners at about 3:30 this afternoon. But let's start with the Browns. Obviously, the comeback, surviving the Hail Mary. What it does is it bumps them up to 9-5. If they had lost that game, it would have dropped them back into a multi-team 8-6 race. Instead, they're a full game up at least on all the other teams chasing the wild card. They're in the 5 slot right now. They've got a very solid chance. They're 85% of making the playoffs. And by the way, they are not yet out of it when it comes to winning the AFC North. We'll see what happens with Baltimore. They'll need some help, but the Browns, that's a big win for them there. And the Texans, they came into today knowing that if they lost, their chances of making the playoffs would plummet to just 23%. And then they promptly fell behind 13-0 in this game. And at that point, their chances just of winning today were 7%. But they rally. They kick that field goal as time expires. In overtime, they get the win. And all of a sudden, their chances of getting in the playoffs, 60%. You take a look at that remaining schedule, some critical games there that could have tiebreaker implications. But the Texans were facing slim odds, and they end the day with more than a puncher's chance of playing in the postseason.
Thanks as always, Steve. Great stuff at Lambeau Field today. And I spoke to Baker Mayfield, the Buccaneers quarterback, last week after they beat the Falcons. And I asked him about going back to Lambeau, and it was kind of like hushed, reverential tones by him. He played there a couple of Christmases ago, threw 4 interceptions in a game the Browns only lost by 2 points.
He didn't want to talk about it.
He showed up, but he knows that's like football cathedral. He showed up today, Matthew Berry, only the second quarterback ever to have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. The other one, Aaron Rodgers. This one, Baker Mayfield. What a day for him in the Bucs.
Unbelievable. And played within himself, to your point about the perfect passer rating. And at the right time, the first 3 possessions of the second half, Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown pass. He got Godwin involved, Mike Evans, got Cade Otton a little bit involved as well. They're using the run game really, really well. And so in a game in which I think everyone expected, the Packers, they'll be fine. Jordan Love at home, he's so much better at Lambeau and everything like that. The Buccaneers came in there and, this is a statement win for Tampa Bay overall, but I think especially for Baker Mayfield, who's had an up-and-down career and questions, can he be a franchise quarterback? He's bounced around the league a little bit. This is a great win for him on the road in a must-win game for Tampa.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is he has that kind of mindset and mentality of, I don't really care what happened before. I don't care what you're going to say about me. I'm going to show up because I know the guys in the locker room believe in me. And I think you said it last week. Mike Evans talked about it. Their relationship, they're playing together. He's enjoying it. And you see that. You see Baker Mayfield continue to just show up for this team, continue to make plays. And it was fun to see because they're playing against a team like Green Bay that, 2 weeks ago? We were talking about Green Bay being the dangerous team in the NFC that can make the playoff push. You don't want to play them right now. They go on, they lose to the Giants last week, come back at home, a chance to go out there and kind of get back on track. They made some plays. They got going, and, it was kind of a shootout in the second half. But I think Baker Mayfield and his grittiness of continuing to come out and just play, that I think Tampa's kind of turning into that team.
There's no doubt. It starts with the defense when you're talking about Tampa. Todd Bowles is their head coach, one of the best coordinators in the league. So when they play good, solid defense, that gives them a chance. They were a little bit up and down today in the game. And then the offense, takes over. And, Baker Mayfield, so much about him is confidence. like with any quarterback, when he plays with that swagger and that feeling, knowing that he's got those two guys outside and he's cutting the ball loose, he's a different player. And we saw that. You pointed out earlier all the seam throws he was making, the vertical stuff down the field, attacking the defense. Time and time again, he made some big throws, and he and Godwin were on the same page. And when you get a guy like that, that security blanket, it builds that confidence. And the big moments, those are the guys that made the plays.
They've been getting a lot, too, out of running back Rashad White the past 4 weeks. And it dawned on me entering this weekend, even though the 49ers are clearly the best team, there are so many other teams that are jockeying for playoff spots. Jobs are going to be secured. Baker Mayfield, maybe his future in Tampa. Todd Bowles, his future. We've already seen a job lost on Thursday night into Friday morning after the Chargers got blown out. So many jobs in the balance that are going to go one way or the other. All right, it's fantasy football time, Matthew. Big observations from today.
Yeah, well, I think the big one is, so it's the fantasy playoffs. It's the first round of the fantasy playoffs. It's week 15. And so what happens in the fantasy playoffs? You're expecting your superstars, the guys that got you there to help you get to the next round. And we saw one of the biggest and one of the most baffling games I think we've ever seen. Bijan Robinson, who was the 8th overall pick in the NFL draft this year, who most people believe, and you guys tell me if you disagree, but I'm on the board with this, that he's a generational talent. This is you don't normally draft running backs that high unless they're that special the way Bijan Robinson is. And somehow Bijan Robinson sees only 23% of the Falcons' rushing attempts against Carolina. He finishes with just 14 yards and 8 touches. Both were season lows, that includes the migraine game. Remember when he had the migraine and everyone was like, what happened to Bijan? It wasn't on the injury report. This is a guy who over his previous 4 games was averaging over 19 touches a game, 99 yards from scrimmage, and in a game that the Falcons needed to stay in the race there in the NFC South, Bijan Robinson does absolutely nothing, less than 1 fantasy point in the fantasy playoffs. Again, this is a guy that was a first-round pick in every fantasy league out there. He certainly sunk one of my fantasy teams. I don't think it's his fault. I think it's Arthur Smith's fault, honestly, but that's one of the big storylines.
I do wonder what goes on there. Why?
It's crazy to me.
How'd your other fantasy teams do?
They all
Nobody
won.
cares.
They all won. No one cares. I agree with you. Shout out to Big Cat and PFT. But I will just, 100%, well done, you got me. But I'll just say, it was very upsetting. It was very upsetting for many fantasy managers. And I'll just take one moment to turn fantasy into reality. I don't understand the usage from Arthur Smith because I'll tell you why. It's one of 2 things. It's very simple. Either Bijan Robinson's the best guy in that running back room, in which case, why are you not using him on the road against Carolina, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL this season? And if he's not the best guy in that running back room, if it's Tyler Algier or Cordero Patterson that you think gives you a better chance to win, then why on earth are you using the 8th overall pick on a running back for a team that has a lot of needs? It's either a massive miscalculation in terms of coaching or the front office, but there's no in between because it's one of the 2. It makes no sense at all that in a division game that you must win, Bijan Robinson touches the ball that few.
There was a report this week that Arthur Smith is safe, barring a disaster. Today kind of felt like a disaster, didn't it?
I mean, just a game that wasn't high scoring, the weather's bad, and Atlanta kind of controlled the game. It was like they're going to win, and they're driving, and Desmond Ridder throws an interception, and it's like just like that, they lose the game. But taking another step further, Kyle Pitts is a guy that doesn't play much, and you could probably argue that Jonnu Smith seems to be more productive in their offense than Kyle Pitts, another guy they used a higher draft pick on. So it's a very weird thing when you watch Atlanta of how they use their guys and the value they put on them.
Yeah, Arthur Smith has just been a bane in the a bane to fantasy managers' existence. He is public enemy number 1 in the world of fantasy football. But thank you, James Cook, for showing up. What I have now here in my hands, guys, as always, hot off the presses, actual bets from actual bettors. It is the DraftKings crowning moments for week number 15. And someone out there, number 1, someone out there put $5,000, big chunk of money there, on Patrick Mahomes under 21.5 fantasy points. In some states, you can actually place bets on fantasy points on DraftKings. $5,000 on Mahomes under 21.5 fantasy points to win $9,550. That went off at -110. That one cashes. So congratulations. Not often you win money betting against Patrick Mahomes, but someone out there did just that. Someone else out there put $1,000 on the Bears defense and special teams anytime touchdown, which worked out well. By the way, they only managed to cash that twice. There was a pick 6 that went down to the 1-yard line and then another pick 6 that ultimately cashed. That goes off at +850, so somebody out there turned $1,000 into $9,500. And then finally, a $100 bet on Raheem Mostert to score the first touchdown on Sunday to win $2,600, then went off at +25. always a good bet, especially with Tyreek Hill out, that Mostert was most likely to get in the end zone. There you go.
All right.
Do I have a promo
do
read?
your read now.
All right, there you go. Well, I want to remind everyone, Mike Florio, including the three of you, that this season on DraftKings, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every single day. All you have to do is download the app, use promo code SNF when you sign up. It's DraftKings Sportsbook. Crown is yours.
All right, it's speed round time, and we have themes. And since it's the holidays, it's low-hanging fruit. What gift would we give to each team that's already been eliminated from postseason contention? We'll start with the Tennessee Titans. Matthew Berry.
Here's what gift I would give them. Mike Vrabel back. I know there's questions about whether his future there in Tennessee. I think Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I'd give the Tennessee Titans fans Mike Vrabel back.
Devin?
I give him a cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. Relax, you found a quarterback. There's a lot of stressors we're going to read off some of these teams. They're worried about a lot, but you found Will Levis. You might have some work to do, but go enjoy Broad Street out there in Nashville. Go have some fun.
Pretty good. I think they got to get their mojo back. They haven't had it in about a year for me. To me, they were always one of the hardest teams to beat. They always did the things that winning teams did. They didn't do the things that losing teams did. They knew how to win. It was kind of like New England South there. And for the last year or so, they're finding ways to lose games way too much, and they got to get that back.
I would give them a mulligan, and I think we're still within the 2-year statute of limitations. I would go back and not trade A.J. Brown to the Eagles. That's what I would give the Tennessee Titans this year. All right, the Jets. Matthew, what would you give them?
An offensive line. For all the complaints about Zach Wilson, and I get it, the fact of the matter is I don't know that anyone, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or no one can play behind that offensive line. That's what they need. They need an offensive line, somebody who can block and let plays happen.
I was going to say the same thing. So since he already gave him an offensive line, I will give him one of your specialties, a Dollarita.
Okay.
Because it's really down right now. But
bad.
after Berry gives you the offensive line, you got Aaron Rodgers coming back. So you can sip a little bit. You can enjoy, relax. You got Aaron
with a
Rodgers
Dollarita.
there.
Yeah, with Aaron Rodgers, I hope to God he doesn't come back and play. Yeah. I hope he gives himself a chance to come back next year healthy. He's 40 years old. And for me, I'd like to give him a healthy Aaron Rodgers and see how this experiment goes. They play good defense. They certainly have to bolster the offensive line. But beyond that, they got some weapons. They got some receivers to throw to. They got some runners. Let's see a healthy Aaron Rodgers and see how they do.
I would give them the gift that the Cowardly Lion wanted in The Wizard of Oz. I would give them courage. I would give them the nerve to say to Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, you can have a seat at the table, but no more general manager for you. No more of your friends, no more of your buddies. We'll decide who's going to be on the team because these guys may not be quite the best players to add to what we're trying to do. All right, Patriots, Matthew, what would you give to them?
Give them a quarterback. I don't think they have the answer right there in the building. Bailey Zappi's had a couple of nice moments, but I think they need a quarterback. I don't think they have the answer in the building right now long term.
Yeah, the draft's going to give him a quarterback, but I would give him a vacation package to Disney because I don't see, even with another quarterback, I just don't think this team is back in the playoffs next year, not that fast. It's going to take more time. So sad to say my guys up north will be probably booking that vacation sometime in December again.
I knew you were good. I didn't think the whole thing would crumble when you left. I think I agree with Matthew. They got to get a quarterback. They need a foundational quarterback, a guy that can build the whole thing around. They're not going to get it at pick 199 like they did back in 2000 with Tom Brady, but they got to use the investment, go get a new guy, give Mac a new opportunity somewhere else, Bailey a new opportunity somewhere else, and build it around a new guy.
I would give them the proverbial olive branch that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick can come together with a peaceful resolution and go their separate ways. We feel like it's moving in that direction, but I feel like Kraft wants to try to get a draft pick or two. Let's just go our separate ways. Let Belichick go where he's going to go and let the Patriots move forward. All right, your Commanders. What would you give your Commanders, Matthew?
How long do we have? It's the speed round. All right. Look, you never want it's the Christmas season. You never want to root for anyone to lose their jobs, but I would give them a new coaching staff. It has been 4 years of this regime. They've had a losing record every single season. It does not feel like the team comes to play in the biggest moments. They are underprepared. They get blown out on national television multiple times. I think there needs to. It feels like the locker room is a bit lost. So I would give them a new coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're going to get they need to find some kind of discount on a moving company because there's going to be a lot of new boxes coming in there. They're going to redo this whole thing. I think like you said, we don't want to see anyone lose their job, but it looks like this is moving in that direction. And new owner, he's gonna want his people in there. I expect.
Who do you want? Who do you want? Who would you want to coach the Commanders?
Well, the hard thing I think is no one can make a decision until the Pittsburgh rumors and the New England rumors end. Because to me, if I'm another team and Mike Tomlin or Bill Belichick, you have a chance to get them as coaches, I'm going there first.
Yeah, it's a clean slate. I think everybody knows that with the new ownership. And no disrespect to anybody who's there, but it's just time to start this thing again. If you can get one of those iconic guys in the league right now, that's the direction you should go.
Who's at the top of your wish list?
Ben Johnson.
He didn't even need a second to think.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even. Yeah.
By the way,
I
can't imagine Tomlin's available, but Tomlin would be amazing. I don't think Mike Vrabel should be available, but if somehow Mike Vrabel's available, I'm in on Mike Vrabel.
You want Belichick?
Oh, he took too long.
Yep. Nope.
It took too long.
All right, Cardinals.
Guy's crazy.
What are we giving the Cardinals?
I don't know that we're not ready for Belichick. We're not, in all seriousness, because he's going to need time. You know what I mean? And anyway,
we moved on to the Cardinals.
Yes. I'm answering Devin.
We've already done therapy sessions for me this year.
I'm answering
therapy
Devin.
session for Matthew Berry and his Commanders fandom.
And I answered it.
All right, Cardinals.
Florio.
I'm getting the Cardinals a winter coat. It's a long year this year, but I think this Cardinals team is moving in the right direction. There's a chance they might need those coats to go on the road and play somewhere cold in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, they just need time. I think that program is a good one. I think we've seen some sparks from them on both sides of the ball, and they've had a couple good wins over the course of the year, and they just need time to build the program.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury's house for Jonathan Gannon. Because I got to tell you something. I think Gannon has done a really nice job this year for Arizona. They have been much more competitive than I think anyone gave them any right to be. There's still holes on that team. They've got to get some stuff figured out. They will. They'll keep rebuilding. But if I was a Cardinals fan, I would be excited about the future. I think they are building something there.
I'd want to give them the clarity and the wisdom as to what they're going to do at the quarterback position. It's going to be tempting to move on from Kyler Murray if you're going to have one of the top picks, but Murray has proven he can do it. Build around him. Use that high pick to build around him. All right, last and definitely least, the Carolina Panthers.
They need tickets to the college playoffs next year because they need a lot of players. So let their scouting department, you go, you find all the good players you can find because this isn't probably going to get any better next year.
Yeah, talk about a rebuild. I'm optimistic about the quarterback. I know he's been compared to C.J. Stroud, and he's not C.J. Stroud, and a lot of people are on him. But that guy won a lot of games at Alabama in a really good environment. They have to make the environment better. Yep. For me, what makes the environment better for a quarterback are the guys up front, the ability to run the football. That takes pressure off them. It's going to be a step-by-step process. It's not going to happen overnight.
My gift is patience. Give them the gift of patience. Like 2 years in a row, they've hired a coach and then fired that same coach in the middle of the season. Patience to whoever it is you guys decide is going to coach the Carolina Panthers next year. Give them patience to build something there because it's going to take some time. But I agree with you. There are some pieces there. They're just going to need time. So give David Tepper and the organization there the gift of patience to be like, you know what? We're on a path. Give us a little bit of time.
What do you think about that, Florio? Does he have patience?
Well, my first thought was give them a new owner, but I know that's not practical. It's not realistic. So my wish for the Panthers and their owner, Ebenezer Tepper, this Christmas would be that he's visited on Christmas Eve by the ghost of football past, the ghost of football present, the ghost of football future. And when he awakens the next morning, he resolves to get out of the football operations and entrust it to the people who know what they are doing.
Did you just come up with that? I mean, that's brilliant.
No, I worked on it earlier. I tested it out in Trenton and then decided to bring it here. All right, that's it. Thanks, as always, happy holidays, and see you next weekend for the doubleheader on NBC with the exclusive Peacock game, Bills-Chargers, next Saturday night. Have a great week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.